Hello everyone, my name is PrdBlackWatch and welcome to the first episode in a new series that's going to be covering the wider gameplay aspects of Siege. In this episode in particular, we're going to be talking about roaming, which is a topic that I've been asked to talk about quite a lot in the past, and I've obviously covered it in some of my roamer-centric how-to-play videos, but this is going to be very specifically about the gameplay style and what comes with it rather than the individual operators themselves and how their nuances play into the way that you roam. So roaming is the role that's assigned to three speed defenders. So they're the ones that can move around the map most silently and they can move around the map most quickly. So the faster you are in Siege, the quieter you are. If you're a 3 armor operator who's trying to sprint around the map, your footsteps will be heard from a long way away. You're an incredibly fat, slow, loud boy. That's why you're encouraged to anchor when you're playing as those operators. 2 speeds is not quite as bad, but the 3 speed, they are the speedy boys. They can get around the map very quickly, they can get around the map very quietly, and generally speaking, it's always going to be better to take them as your roamers. Now the roamers are designed to essentially patrol the whole map. They're not stuck in one fixed location all the time. They're out there to find enemies, slow down pushes, snag kills and snag damage. You are the harasser. You're aiming to go into the back line, isolate enemies and take advantage of their isolation through damage, through kills, through just general distraction. Fear is one of your biggest attributes as a roamer. People are frightened of the roamers because they're so difficult to deal with, because they just come in, they wreak havoc and then they disappear. And the only way to really deal with that is to snag a clean shot and kill them, or to get out some of the counters for roamers. But anyway, we're going to go into the key strengths of roamers as characters. Their speed and their silence is obviously one of them. One of the other ones, generally speaking, is their weapons. Their weapons tend to be some of the stronger ones among the selection of defender weapons in the game. Take Jaeger for an example. His 416 carbine is arguably the best defending weapon. Vigil's K1A carbine is also not a bad weapon, and he has a very good secondary to back him up. And so there's just a general solid base of weapons for them to work with. The difference being with some of them is that you can get high rate of fire weapons that maybe don't deal as much damage, but they're good for bursting down people at close range. For example, Bandit's MP7 and Ella's Scorpion submachine gun, although the Scorpion submachine gun at the moment is definitely one of the weaker roaming options, and Ella herself is one of the weaker roaming options, unfortunately, after the changes they've made. So what makes a good roamer? A good roamer is someone who knows the map very well. Map knowledge is a very big part of being a roamer, because you're aiming to successfully maneuver yourself around the map with a good base of knowledge in terms of what's safe, what's likely to be used as an entry point, what's likely to be exploited as a kill zone for the attackers. Now, kill zones are spots that are generally speaking going to be focused on more by the attacking team than other parts of the map. So there's some windows at the start of a round that are very obvious for peaks. That's a kill zone. That's a danger zone that you may be able to exploit to your own advantage, but the attackers could also exploit it for a very early pick on you, which makes you less viable. So if you're going to go for those spawn peaks, be confident, but don't be overconfident. If you get some damage and you take some too, it's not a favourable trade, but it's a trade nonetheless, and it's one that you should take and then leave with your life, because it's better to be alive than it is to be dead and upset, because there's no point in risking a kill if you're just going to die and contribute nothing. Same goes for when you're wanting to do runouts. It's always very risky. Your team would probably benefit more from you being alive than the potential for a runout kill. Generally speaking, I would tell you to avoid these because it's just a little bit too risky most of the time. They also are good because they will know how and when to engage. So this is being able to use the sights and sounds that you pick up to decide when is the right time to move into a room and engage with the enemy, when is the right time to hold off and move on, when's the right time to peel away from an engagement, when should you not engage at all. All that sort of stuff is things that you pick up over time from experience. You learn to know when the right opportunities are, when the right number of enemies are there. Generally speaking, it's quite difficult to pick up on how many people are in a room unless there's a big cavalcade of footsteps, in which case you know there's quite a lot of people. But if you only hear one set of footsteps, there is a potential for someone else to be around and you just don't pick up on it. So it's always going to be a risk-reward situation to you wait too long and potentially endanger your team by not taking out the attackers quicker? Or do you go early, potentially get yourself killed? See what I mean? It's a very difficult power balance between the two options. So what you want to try and do is make that particular guess as informed a guess as possible. Wear a good headset. Get your team to give you intel if they have it at their disposal. If you've got a pulse on a site and you're defending above it, for example, if you're defending archives on consulate, you want to use that knowledge to your advantage. You want to communicate with your pulse, find out who's in a room, for example, Visa Office, which is the room that you would be defending as a roamer there, because you want to be stalling the attack as long as possible. If there's one crucial point in any given site, and for example on archives it's the blue hatch and the corner hatch on site, those are the two crucial points for that particular objective. You want to stall their take of that particular site as long as possible. You want to be up there harassing them, dealing damage, keeping them concerned, and just keeping them at bay for as long as you can. You don't have to kill them, you just have to stop them from completing their objective. That is the key part of a roamer's toolkit, is the ability to make people hesitate. Hesitation is what loses rounds for attackers in Siege, because if they hesitate too much, it leaves them with not enough time to do too much. And if that's the case, you're more than likely going to win the round, because you're forcing them into a scenario where they have to adapt very, very quickly when they don't have the time to pull off that adaptation and execute on any sort of strong game plan. Stall as much as possible, then you'll see success. The other thing you have to think about is whether or not your presence is actually going to be helpful in that situation. If someone else has got a particular room covered and you're just running in creating another little distraction, think about whether or not you'd actually be useful in that situation. Obviously you're giving your teammate backup, but maybe those particular guys are just trying to draw attention to the defenders and your team, so that they can then have another push going on simultaneously from a different location. Do they need the backup? Will you be that useful there? If not, try and find something else to do, because you're more useful as a roaming unit. Usually you'll have 2 or 3 roamers on a team. If you can spread yourselves out and perform as many tasks as possible with as little risk as possible. It's all about calculated guesses, calculated risks within the roaming gameplay. You're not always going to be getting these to pay off. Sometimes you will run into an angle and it's just going to be watched, but try and make it as favourable as you can. Be unpredictable. If you're going to run through a door, maybe consider running through a wall instead. If there's a wall nearby that's not reinforced and you have impact grenades, go for it. Go through the wall instead, because it's a different sight line. The attacker may not be positioned watching that particular angle. And always vary the way that you approach a place. If you've already won a single round as a defender and you're then roaming in a similar location, don't do the same thing twice. Try and go to a different place the next time. Try and move around in a different way. Don't always drop a hatch that you've dropped in the previous round, because eventually they're going to catch on and they're going to catch you as you drop, and they're going to know where you're going to be. Whereas if you're always liquid, you're always moving around in different ways, taking different options, it's much more difficult for the attackers to adapt, and as a result, hopefully you'll survive for longer. Now, different roaming tactics, there are sort of several base play roaming styles that I seem to notice through my own play and through other people's play. There's the static roamer. This is someone who picks a particular entry point and chooses it as their main base of operations for a good chunk of the round. Generally speaking, they're there for the start to try and take out anyone who's pushing from that location. For example, there's some people who will go into the trophy room on the chalet, just above the chalet main garage. So they'll be standing above the hatch there waiting for them to enter from the garage. They can hear them, and then they'll push from there and try and get the flank as they push towards Wine Cellar. Now, the difficulty with this is that you're obviously holding yourself in one position that may end up being fruitless, in which case you have to relocate to a different location where you have limited to no intel about the distance between you and the actual action location. So sometimes it's actually better just to go with the next style, which is the active roamer. Now, active roamers are always moving. They're never sitting in one location unless they have a solid read or solid intelligence on an enemy coming into a position. So they're always looking for something to do, constantly moving around. They're patrolling the map, they're checking all the key entry points, all the key action points, and they're trying to find a way for them to contribute, be that through damage, be that through a presence, be that through kills. All of these things come together, all of these things are helpful. And it's not a bad style to use. The only thing I would say is that you need to be very switched on if you're going to do this, because you're constantly going to be moving into potential kill zones, new windows that may have opened whilst you're away, doors that may have opened, people that may be watching locations. So you really need to have your head on a swivel. You need to be as aware as possible, check every corner you move into, check doors that may have been entered, windows that may have been entered, walls that may have been breached, and just stay wary. Try not to sprint too much. When you sprint, you're very loud, and even though you are a 3-speed and you're a bit quieter than the other guys, you're still going to make enough noise for someone to pick you out of the crowd. So keep that in mind. Try and reduce your speed whenever necessary. If you do have to sprint, and if your team is being lambasted on sight and you need to get there, try and sprint during gunfire period. So if there's a long sustained exchange of gunfire, you can sprint, and your footsteps will be fairly muffled for anyone with any real distance between you and them. And if they're the ones that are firing, the likelihood of them hearing you whilst they're firing their weapon is almost nil. It's very, very loud when you fire a weapon, and your sensory deprivation is quite severe in terms of the sound. So you can take advantage of that however you can. One of the things that I have seen people do, and one of the things I've done myself, is actually request teammates to lay down fire and fire their weapon to try and muffle my own footsteps, just make as much noise as possible, set off explosions, fire their weapons, and that does give you some cover. But what you want to hope for is that teammate is very close to the attackers, because the closer they are, the louder the gun is, the more aural cover you're actually going to receive from that particular gunning. And the last style of roaming play is it's a different one. It's essentially, I call it the check-in roamer. And it's a bit of a strange way to put it, but it's basically a roamer who keeps themselves relatively close to the objective whenever they can. So it's not constantly being there, but instead it's patrolling the map, as an active roamer does, but checking in on the objective itself more often than others. So if this could be crossing through the objective as a means to then roam in other parts of the map, this could just be stopping by for a second before going back the way they came and patrolling again. Just different things. This is more cautious players that tend to do this, because they're trying to keep themselves close to the objective in case something goes wrong and they do need to make that retreat. They want to be there as soon as possible. They also might just appreciate having the backup from teammates every now and again, and being able to come back to a place which is relatively safe. And it's understandable. You tend to find that players who are just a little bit less confident in their roaming ability will do this, because they still have some sort of anchoring sensibilities within them, which is totally understandable. If you're getting used to roaming for the first time, you want to do what makes you feel comfortable. You don't want to put yourself in the danger zone too often, because you're going to get yourself put off of that style. Roaming is so important, and being able to contribute to your team as a roamer is very, very valuable, because if you're just an anchor, it's very helpful. Obviously, it's useful to have people that can anchor all the time, but similarly, you want as much variety and as much diversity in your team build-up as you can. A lot of the time in ranked, you'll go in, you'll be used to one particular style of play, and maybe it just doesn't work out for you on that day. So being able to switch off to a different style is fantastic. You know, if you're having an anchoring day as dark and you just keep getting snapped on sight, you're not holding your angles properly, maybe running around as vigil for a little while will help you. It will clear your head a little bit, and maybe you'll have more luck. Similarly, if you're just not getting those roams and those flanks right, go on, sit on site, be a semi-roamer or smoke, do whatever you want to do. Just try and keep yourself as diverse as possible, but always make sure when you're picking operators not to go too wide. It's better to be very strong in two things than mildly strong in lots of things, because the strength is what wins rounds. It's the comfort that you find in playing your operators that will likely lend you the victory, versus trying to play as someone that you're just not that confident with. Even if that operator is going to be more helpful for the team objectively, it's better for you to be more helpful to your team by playing someone that you can comfortably bring into battle, knowing that you're going to perform well with them, or you're going to perform at your best because you feel better about it. Now, one of the last things I want to say about roamers is that going forward, this video is obviously going to be outdated eventually when new operators are released on the defending side, particularly new roamers. One of the things that makes a roamer strong is the access they have to impact grenades. Now, previously we had a few roamers with impact grenades. Now, when I say a few, I mean two, and I mean Ella and Vigil. Now, the only roamer with access to impact is Vigil. This is a huge deal, because previously Vigil was looked at as just a decent roamer who had alright weapons and an ability that was incredibly niche and often didn't come into play at all. Now, I would argue he is the roamer in the game. I've forgotten Kavera, actually. She has impact grenades, but that's a totally different kettle of fish altogether. Competitively, she's not always the best option. She's definitely fun, but she just doesn't have the killing potential that other operators have, because ultimately her primary weapon is a pistol. Her other options are a shotgun, which is great for opening hatches and actually quite good as a shotgun in general, but it's a shotgun. And she has an SMG, which has the lowest time to kill of any weapon in the game. So yeah, not great. But Vigil is just so much better now that he is the only one that can really viably take these impact grenades, because the value of being able to just crack open a wall or a hatch and use that as an escape route, it's honest to God a get out of jail free card, because as a roamer you want to be as slippery as possible. You want to have those safety nets, and an impact grenade is a guaranteed safety net. It's a chance for you to just blow up something that's in your way and run through it to safety. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you can't play as other operators that don't have impact grenades and roam successfully. It's just that if you want to be a pure roamer, impact grenades are always going to help you out. Now, if you're going to play as a roamer, you also want to be helpful for your team. Don't be too selfish. If you have a gadget like Jaeger's ADS, it's a very, very strong gadget. Use it wisely and make sure it's deployed before you go. Just get your setup done really quickly, get everything reinforced, get all your barbed wire down, whatever it is you need to do to set up. Make sure it's done. Don't complain about other things going on. Don't complain that you don't have enough time. You will always have enough time if you just hurry up. Get it done fast. Ensure that all your stuff is done very quickly. Know exactly what you're going to reinforce, when you're going to reinforce it. Get it done, get out to your spot, and you're sorted. You'll have nothing to complain about. Right guys, that's pretty much all I have to say about roaming so far. If you think I've missed anything, please leave a comment down below. I think that's the first time I've ever actually asked for a comment outside of feedback videos. Oh well. Yeah, just wanted to leave a quick note at the end of this video. I want to thank everyone who subscribed to the channel so far, and everyone who's watched the videos. I really do appreciate all of the support and all of the attention that the videos have been getting, and I feel as though, from what I'm hearing, they are actually helping people, and that is number one what I wanted to do when I started making these videos, and I'm really happy to see that people have benefited from watching them. If they do help you out, thank you very much for checking them out in the first place. I really do appreciate it. I started on YouTube in 2009, and from then on I was making sort of little stupid videos, and I finally decided last year that I was just going to go for it and start making content that I enjoyed, start making content regularly, and I've managed to go from like 30 subscribers to where we are now, where we're just coming up at the cusp of 1,000 subscribers, and that is absolutely ridiculous. I cannot believe this has happened, and I just want to thank every single one of you for being there for it. Thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, thank you for commenting, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. I just appreciate everything that's happened on this channel ever since I started making Siege content, and I do it all to make sure that you guys hopefully have as good an experience with this fantastic game as I do. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Do svidania. Bye bye.